Our guest from the organization that we really depend on, securefreedom.org. She is the author of Sino Sharia, Countering Violent Extremism and the Disarming of America's First Line of Defense. She co-authored this with one of our favorite guys on the show, Frank Gaffney. She's Vice President for Research and Analysis with the Center for Security Policy. That's the Washington, D.C. National Security Think Tank. She's a career operations officer. She was a career operations officer with the CIA. Please welcome to the show, Clare Lopez. Good morning, Clare. How are you?
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. We really appreciate all that securefreedom.org has been doing. We like Frank Gaffney a lot, Fred Fleitz. I mean, you all are just fabulous people doing great work and necessary work, so we appreciate you.
Well, and we appreciate the help that you give us in getting our messages out.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there's so much to talk about. And, with the headlines being as they were, the talk about North Korea has taken second or third or fourth page. And, really it needs to be discussed. So I thought perhaps we could discuss that first. There's a couple of things that I had read recently and I thought you could comment on. First of all, there was a story yesterday about, and this had happened maybe a month or so ago, weapons coming from North Korea into Turkey. Can you talk about that?
I think perhaps it was a shipment of North Korean weaponry headed for Egypt.
I'm sorry, did I say Turkey? Oh, I thought it was Turkey. All right, I stand corrected. Thank you. And
but in any case, there was a North Korean ship seized off of the Egyptian coast, and on it was a huge cache of weapons, and it was a kind of a freighter. The 30,000 RPGs were concealed underneath other cargo, iron ore, but they were discovered. But
yes.
The thing is that it was the Egyptians, it was the regime of President El-Sisi who had ordered these RPGs, and it was for his regime they were coming. 30,000 RPGs.
That's interesting to me. These are those are rocket-propelled grenades, right? The RPGs.
Yes.
They say it was one of the largest seizure of ammunition in the history of sanctions against North Korea.
Well, it's a pretty large
I'd
shipment.
say. Yeah.
And surprising that the customer was actually Egypt.
Yeah,
this is not something they need, to fight the Islamic State in the Sinai, for example, or the Islamic State next door in Libya. It's a little bit puzzling what these were intended to be used for.
Well, that was my first question. And, even though Egypt had said that they, wanted to be transparent in all things, I guess, if it wouldn't have been for U.S. intelligence picking this up and seeing that vessel and alerting Egyptian authorities all through the channels that they needed to go through, that kind of forced them to take action. So the question is, would they have been transparent? I don't know. I mean, I thought that was interesting. I wasn't quite sure what it meant.
Well, the other angle to that, of course, is the originator of the shipment, and that, of course, is North Korea, which is an economic basket case, of course, and makes money any way it can.
Right. And
selling weaponry like this, and then all the way on up to nuclear and ballistic missile technology is part of the way they try to make money.
So the bottom line here is that North Korea continues to do what North Korea has been doing, what they've amped up since our president took office 257 days ago. There's no indication that they're going to change their course or that they're going to change their personality or their vision for what this young ruler has planned for us and perhaps for other countries as well. Nothing's really changed, has it?
No, nothing has changed. The regime of Kim Jong Un is tremendously fragile. It is unstable, and this is what makes things so dangerous. And unlike the situation we, the United States, faced in the Cold War, let's say, when we likewise faced a nuclear-armed adversary in the Soviet Union, China too. But those places were led by rational nation-state leaders. And so MAD, the policy of mutual assured destruction, worked. But with a ruler like Kim Jong Un, who is unstable, his regime is unstable, the country itself is a total basket case, as we've said. And it's in collaboration with the regime in Tehran, in Iran,
right,
which also is clandestinely building and developing nuclear weapons.
Indeed.
Led by a regime that is dedicated to an eschatology of destruction and chaos on earth to bring back its Messiah figure, the Mahdi.
Exactly.
It's not a different situation than the Cold War, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and, and I had this conversation on air before when we talk about, their goal is to bring, what they believe to be their Messiah, if you will, their promised one to return. A lot of religions hold similar beliefs. Christianity holds that, their Messiah is returning. The Jewish people believe that their Messiah will be coming, and those religions, they all believe there'll be some sort of Armageddon. The fundamental difference between the Jewish beliefs, the Christian beliefs, and what we see coming out of Tehran is that the Jews and the Christians don't believe they need necessarily to do anything to bring about that Armageddon. They don't want to bring about the Armageddon, but when you think about the mindset coming out of Iran, they believe that they are to set that stage for Armageddon. And I think therein lies the most danger. I mean, that is a dangerous belief that you must bring about this Armageddon, if you will, in order to hurry the return, of your Mahdi that they believe in. So I think that's what makes this so dangerous and what people perhaps don't think about very often when they think about what's happening in those parts of the world.
Yes, Rose, you're absolutely right. The Iranian regime at the top it includes clerics and military leaders of the IRGC, for example, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, who actually believe they can hotwire the apocalypse.
Right, that's a good way to put it.
To borrow from a friend of ours. They think they can accelerate the return of the Mahdi.
Right.
Whereas, just as you say, other faiths are content to wait for when the end times will arrive, when the Messiah figure will return, up to him when he's going to come back. These leaders in Iran think they can accelerate it, and they can do that by causing such chaos and strife and warfare on earth that the Mahdi, the Messianic figure, the 12th Imam, will think that he has to come back to set it all straight.
Yes.
That's how they think. That's what they believe. And when you pair that with a drive for deliverable nuclear weapons, that's a problem.
That is a problem. And that's what scares me, I think, the most. Now, here's something I want to ask you about as well. I think it was over the weekend we heard from Rex Tillerson. I think it was Saturday that we had a couple channels through which we directly engage in conversation with North Korean government. And people had said, wow, that was kind of a high level, bit of information. They were surprised that he made that statement. But then shortly after he made that statement, President Trump said, no, I told Tillerson, no conversations any longer with the Korean government. What did you make of all of that, Claire?
I'm just not sure what to make of it. I saw that too, the exchange there. And it's not the first time that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has publicly taken policy positions different from those of the president.
Yeah.
Now, I would expect, actually, that the U.S. government has some kind of channel of communication with just about any government,
sure.
any regime
sure.
On Earth, and I would want them to have that. If nothing else, then to pass our clear positions and red lines to,
yes.
To try to help prevent miscalculation. So I don't know what to make of it. I would expect that there are some means of communication that are open or at least available to be used between the U.S. government and Pyongyang.
But the president felt that some clarification was necessary, or some. And I agree with you. And our audience is full aware. Tillerson, McMaster, where Iran is concerned, and the recertification of Iran. We're not particularly happy with their input. We're not quite sure about what Mattis's role was in all of this. We know they all met with Trump before the last recertification was due. But when you hear Tillerson making that statement, and as you said, then President Trump coming out, with a slightly different conversation, or denying that he wants him to have, or rejecting the idea of having those conversations, then you got to scratch your head and wonder what the heck is going on here.
Here's what I think might be going on. Obviously, there will always be some kind of channel available for government-to-government communications. But I think what the president would like to do is to do away with the idea that we are engaged in any kind of negotiation with North Korea. This is not a discussion about how many ICBMs or nuclear warheads the North Koreans may have. So I think he's maybe trying to squelch that perception that we're in some kind of negotiated discussions about the nuclear program in North Korea.
Well, and the White House, I was reading a story in Daily Caller yesterday, I think it was, or perhaps the day before. The headline was, it turns out Trump has had a hard-hitting strategy for North Korea from the start, which doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, he actually had a hard-hitting strategy for getting out of the Iran deal, but he, was met with opposition. But I do believe that he may have had a strategy. They say that there was one that was announced where it was maximum pressure and engagement, and that was after a policy review in March. So I have to believe that the only concern I have, I guess, Claire, is when he comes up against any kind of resistance from those that he's receiving advice from, and those he's put in positions of leadership. And that would mean Rex Tillerson, McMaster, and so forth. And that's where I get a little concerned, because if he does have a hard-hitting strategy after receiving that policy review, then I want to know that he can move forward with that.
I really wish that he had some other people close to him advising him. And one of those people would be Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who is one of this country's top experts on, first of all, the phenomenon of the EMP, electromagnetic pulse weapon, a nuclear device, which, if exploded in the high atmosphere above the unprotected U.S. civilian electric grid,
my God,
would take down our grid. But Peter is also an expert on the Iranian and North Korean programs, nuclear and ballistic missile programs, and he writes frequently about them. Very knowledgeable, very insightful. But people like Peter and like Dr. William Graham, these are the people that need to be around the president, and I don't see that they are.
Are they? No, so they're not getting any messages through. How do you spell Peter Vincent Pry's last name?
All right, so it's Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, P-R-Y.
P-R-Y. Okay, very good. We might try to make an effort to get him on. But
he would be excellent.
Thank you.
He writes frequently, and if you simply even Google his name plus Iran or North Korea, you'll find a list of very excellent, informative articles that he writes.
Thanks for that information. Yeah, I share your concern. I hope that those voices are being heard, but I'm not sure who is able to get through to the president these days. And that is my greatest concern. And let's be honest here: North Korea, Iran, these are huge. These are huge concerns for where the national security is concerned for this country and its citizens. And one would hope that he is getting those messages.
Well, we can hope, but the long pattern of policy behavior on the part of multiple presidents preceding this one has been, unfortunately, to sort of kick the can down the road with regard to both Iran's clandestine nuclear weapons program and North Korea's, and to be clocked over the head when it becomes impossible to ignore how far advanced they really are. In North Korea's case, during the Clinton administration in the 1990s, obviously, they did not want to face reality. And so the North Korean program, both a uranium program and a plutonium program, two pathways to a nuclear bomb, its EMP program, its ballistic missile program, all were ignored. All were dealt with in the framework of, well, let's have some discussions. Let's have a framework agreement, and then paid essentially tribute to North Korea to stop its development of these programs, and of course they never did.
I have to cut it short here because we actually went way longer. That's because you're so darn interesting. Clare Lopez, she's the author of the book See No Sharia, Countering Violent Extremism. Thank you so much for joining us. We will post this interview later today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back with more Rose Unplugged right after this.